You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I am your host, Amy, and with me today are Mark and Kelvin. Hello there, Mark.
Hey, Amy. Sorry, I was muted. How is it going today?
Oh my goodness, so good. Glad to be back on All Good Things. This is our second one since our hiatus.
We're getting back into the groove of things.
I know, right? And Kelvin, how are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. You're absolutely right about getting back in the groove, Amy. Editing last week and all of the administration that comes, I was not prepared after doing 3 months of live. It's just easy.
Yes, it is. Well, listeners, we have a very special treat. We would like to introduce another host of All Good Things. You will have seen her on view screen, and that is Kristin Strachulette. Kristin, welcome to All Good Things.
Hello. I am so excited to be here. I am just literally buzzing right now with anticipation for this. I'm so excited.
Oh, it's so good to have you on. I remember your first appearance on view screen. I went downstairs after we'd finished, and my partner James just went, "She's good."
Yeah, the number of comments that we got from the viewers of the view screen was just overwhelming. And we're like, okay, here's some talent. We need to capture this. And thankfully, you agreed to join our little circus over here.
Well, who wouldn't? Who wouldn't? I mean, y'all are just lovely, lovely humans. So anyone who would say no is foolish, really. But no, honestly, I've never done anything like this before. Never done anything like the view screen or any sort of podcast. So I was not sure what I was getting myself into, but it has quickly become an addiction where I'm like, let's do something. So
she's got the bug.
Yeah, yesterday doing the table read. So that's some fun stuff that will be coming up. That was just
so fun.
Ridiculously fun. And seeing how everybody got into it. You know, it's so different
big time.
When everybody is just fully buying in and completely dedicated to it. It just really adds to the energy.
So Kristin, we were talking before we started about Cinema Z, my other podcast. I'm going to plug it here. But if you like reading scripts, we do it every episode and we take different parts. So we'll have to bring you on that one as well. Just saying.
Absolutely. Especially if I get to be any sort of, if you ever do a horror movie where Simbo gets murdered, I just want to do the scream.
We have a whole spooky season. Don't worry about it. We did like 10 horror films last year.
Oh my goodness.
Excellent.
So Kristin, why don't you give our listeners here a quick rundown, like where are you at in your Star Trek story?
Where am I at in my Star Trek story? Oh my gosh. My Star Trek story has really been a lifelong thing. I just entered my 40s, so it has definitely been a part of my life since growing up. I mean, when my dad and I would sit and watch movies, it wasn't Disney princesses. The first person on screen I remember seeing being like, I want to be her, was Saavik. And it was Robin Curtis. I do remember that. But my first introduction to Star Trek was the original movies. And then I remember in high school, or not high school, but just grade school, running home to get home in time for TNG, because back then you could not PVR. If you missed it, that was it. You maybe caught a rerun in the summer, maybe. So, and then it just flourished from there, and especially once you start to find the communities around it once online, and the internet became a thing. So being able to connect with like-minded people, because otherwise you were just kind of getting made fun of in high school for being a geek.
Yes.
But when you find a whole bunch of people in that same situation, suddenly the labels just don't matter anymore. And I think for me, it's the acceptance that comes with this community that has just really been enriching and so valuable to my sense of self, my self-esteem, everything. It's just, yeah.
Oh.
And growing up with a family where church was a big thing, but I always sort of wasn't fully on board, and I was always looking for like a beacon of direction, and it very much was like Picard, and everything that came out of his mouth started to become doctrine to me. So for a long time, people said, well, do you have a religion? I just said Star Trek, and they would recoil a little bit and be like, Star Trek? I'm like, you if you don't know, you don't know, but if you know, you know what I'm talking about.
Very good. I love that, our stories start with a parent introducing us. Like that happens quite a bit in the Trek community. And I just love it.
Yeah. When my dad found out that I was going on a Star Trek cruise for the first time back in 2018, he was blown away, and he was like, you have to tell me all about it when you get back. But unfortunately, due to some health issues, he's not able to travel anymore, so he'll never be able to go. But he loves hearing the stories, so he's been
and seeing all the pictures. All the pictures.
This might be completely off topic, but when I got home, I go back to work for the first day, and my coworker pops up his head over the little partition and looks at me, and he goes, are you and Justin okay? I was like, yeah, what do you mean? He's like, you were in photos with all of these attractive men on the boat. Every single picture had a new attractive man in it. Was Justin okay with this? And I just looked at him and I was like, we need to talk. It's like, technically Justin was behind the camera for every single one of those photos, and it's fine.
Okay, I just want to sorry boys, we're having a moment here. But yes, I went to a homeowners meeting anyways, and one of the people there was like, you had such a fun time on that cruise. Who were all those good looking men? Like every single guy was so good looking. I'm like, yep, they're my friends. Yes. Well, and do any of them live in Vegas? I'm like, oh, honey, yeah, we're going to talk later.
It's a little bit like when all my friends say, I didn't know there was a gay Star Trek cruise. I mean, well, officially it's not, but it kind of is.
It's the best of both worlds.
Yeah.
I think I asked you guys recently, I was like, are there any like straight Trek fans left, or is everybody sort of on the spectrum at this point?
Maybe a couple women here and there.
Yeah. Well, hey, we got some new Star Trek to discuss.
This is the bridge. All hands to emergency escape pods.
Escape pod!
So, listeners, we were able to watch Discovery Season 5, Episode 3, Janal. So I am so curious to know your thoughts. Mark, let's start with you.
Rainer's an asshole.
He is.
That's my thought. I don't know. The episode was good. I like that it sort of continued the adventure a little bit. You saw more of the Saru and Trina dynamic. They're really building their relationship to be interesting. Like the dynamic of the two characters is really kind of cool, especially from their very different backgrounds. And you're going to see how that works. It's not all sunshine, and we get to see that. I think it's a little bit more real, and I appreciate seeing that on screen. Maybe they'll pull like what they did with Todd Stashwick there on Picard, where like you'll see him for a couple episodes and think this is the worst person ever, and then by the end of the season you're like, oh my god, be my new best friend. So we'll see.
So Kelvin, there were a lot of storylines. Like people are saying like 4 different plot A, B, C, D. What did you think of that? Was it too many for you?
Well, I'm going to start by saying I don't think this episode is deserving of a lot of the criticism it's getting online. I really enjoyed it. And I'm a big fan of the kind of the traditional A plot, B plots that we used to know from back in the day. But you're right, there was 4 distinct storylines here. I mean, you can't go to Trill and not do a Gray and Adira story, even though that's probably the one I could have done without, just because the characters I just don't favor the most. Not to say I dislike them, just not my favorites. But I mean, you won't on DS9 go to Trill and Dax say, I'll stay here. No, it just wouldn't happen. But I liked the kind of the connectivity of the storylines all being about relationships. And that was very much the theme of the episode. There was just a lot going on. You're right, Mark, what you say about the Tarina and the Saru relationship. It is just something that is quite childlike and innocent in a way, the way they kind of tiptoe around each other. But then you get the big wham from Tarina. I don't need a caretaker. I can look after myself. That was so good. And because there was so much going on in the episode with all the different storylines, it gave, dare I say, the haters a distraction from, well, here's Michael Burnham in the thick of it doing all the action. Well, yes, she was, but there was also so much else going on. And with Rayner, I do think they're probably pulling a Todd Stawick of, doing a bait and switch, and he's actually a great guy. But in a way, I kind of see him as a normal Starfleet officer on Discovery, which itself is quite a weird ship. Everybody is all lovey-dovey and family and best friends. He's just he's halfway towards being a Jellicoe, isn't he? Let's face it.
Well, Picard was episode 1 of TNG, episode 1 and 2. Like, he was kind of very standoffish towards the crew, especially the way he was treating Riker when he was having him do that maneuver, putting the ship with the saucer section, and he had to do it manually. And okay, but yeah, he was kind of prickly. Anyway,
yeah. Kristin, what did you think of Janelle?
I agree with the 4 plot points. For me, it's because I'm so used to the main plot point and then just something else happening in the background. That's what my brain works best with. So sometimes too much. I have to rewatch an episode literally 3 to 4 times just to fully absorb what is happening in the episode, because I just glom onto one thing happening. But I am interested to see how things end with Saru this season. I mean, that's the character I would say I am most invested in, seeing the most growth with over the span of the series. And I want to see him have his happily ever after. So I hope they don't kind of, telenovela this at the end and just have him end with complete tragedy. So that's what is bubbling in the back of my brain, is just let Saru have his happy ending.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also felt the Saru Tarina, for me, that was the A plot. That was most important. Yeah. Again, Tarina is exceptional. She's wise. Her aide that was, being logical and saying if she does this, then the extremists and but that was logical and it made sense to Saru. And so Saru approached it, and then she's like, yeah, what made you think that I needed protection? But she had the additional logic to say, if I don't do this, then my supporters are going to think I'm trying to pull one over him and will lose trust in me. So her logic was superior. And I just love that she immediately accepted his apology. And he was like, I will stand beside you. We will get through this together. I'm here to support you. You're here to support me. And I loved that relationship. And Kelvin, you're right. It is an episode about relationships, because that's the whole thing with Rayner, building the relationships with the crew, and Adira and Gray recognizing, well, if we're not together, is there another type of relationship that we can continue to still, have some kind of friendship, or what does that look like? Sad that Adira was like, no, I can't continue in any way. Maybe that'll change. But yeah, I loved the whole thing about relationships. It was, to me, a great episode. I liked it.
And I think the thing about discussing relationships in all their facets, all of their varieties and all their glories and downfalls is really a common thread that we've seen throughout Trek from its inception, is how mankind has learned to put their differences aside and work, but it's not always rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes there is still conflict. There are still bad days. And I really appreciate when they show that relationships, whether they're platonic or romantic, are able to get through tough times. You know, I find that in my circle, what I've seen is people, when they hit a bump in the road in a relationship, they leave. They just end the what ties and move on. And I love showing how people are really sticking with, you know, I love you as a human, and we're going to work this because I do believe that you are worth the investment. And I think that's an important message to bring out and for people to see, is when you become attached to somebody in any sort of manner and you want to see a relationship be a big part of your life, it takes work and it takes compromise, and people just don't seem to want to do that anymore. And they are so easy to just be like, see ya. We're really, it's worth it. It's worth it to work on these relationships.
And I love how Star Trek is showing us how to be in a healthy relationship.
Yes.
Can we talk about Wilson Cruz? What did we think of this performance? I mean, I love Trek when someone's possessed or gets to play a different character, and I know the actors love that too. But yeah, Wilson Cruz playing the title character, Janelle. What did we think?
Oh, I thought he did a great job. It was fun seeing him like loose and free and having a good time and just like staring at the sky and smelling the fresh air, and he was just all living it up. But like he had this childlike giddiness about him, almost like a cue. He was playing. He was having like a really good time, and you didn't see it coming when, you know, he had led them essentially into kind of a trap that was like a test meant to see if, you know, they're worthy of getting whatever information he was going to give them. But you still really like the character, even though he sort of did that bait and switch. I don't know. He was just a really likable character. And I think Wilson probably had a blast playing him.
I like the voice that he put on. He played the character with a really particular voice, and I just thought it was pretty cool. And I like the look as well. Open your uniform. I'm a different person.
Yeah, he embodied a whole new character. It was so wonderful to see him. And I think the script writing is so much lighter. They've got more little jokes and haha funny moments, you know, like he's like, oh, this is too tight. Let me unzip this. And oh, this guy works out. I mean, such a Wilson Cruz thing to say. I absolutely loved it. And the lighter tone between Book and Burnham, you know, okay, let's go on 3, 1, 2, 3, you know, it just, there seems to have a different feel. And I think part of that is with the script writing. I enjoy the lighter tone with it. What do you think, Kristin?
I always enjoy when there's lighter tones in Trek, because again, it can get very, very heavy at times. And so always having those silly episodes, those silly moments throughout, I think help to just help the audience to be able to better absorb the harder times of the shows. And Discovery, it definitely started very dark, very serious, and there was not a lot of light episodes. So I do love that the shift is really happening with having a bit more almost joy in the writing and being able to allow the actors to have that level of fun with their characters.
All right. Well, Kelvin, why don't you introduce what we're going to be talking about today?
I will, thank you. So, continuing from last week, we did say that we were wanting to mark the final season of Discovery with a month long of Discovery-themed episodes here on All Good Things. So we are going to continue by marking the very sad passing of Kenneth Mitchell with our special Kobayashi Maru series. Now, we've not kind of put this into the Kobayashi Maru in a flippant nature, but it kind of occurred that what is more no-win scenario than a terminal condition? And I'm sure throughout our conversations we will, hint upon how you can make a terminal condition and cheat fate in a way by the legacy that you leave behind. So we're going to focus on the life and career of Kenneth Mitchell today.
So let's start with his personal life and family, and then we'll get to his fun stuff in Star Trek. So Kristin,
Yes.
born in Canada, Toronto.
He is a fellow loony. Yay. Which always breaks my heart because I remember when I was reading up on him on the way home from the cruise. I was like, oh, darn. Again, I'm not saying I'm only sad when Canadians die, but there is this weird connection when you see that. So
Yeah. So one thing I found very interesting is that he studied landscape architecture and graduated with top honors. Well, that's not surprising. But he received the Canadian Landscape Architecture Silver Medal Award. Now, I would have never guessed that he was so interested in landscape architecture. Mark?
I love that. It was so interesting to find that out, and I see that at least there's creative threads there. So it's just a different way, a different outlet for his creativity. So he's designing with colors and plants and textures and all this stuff for people's yards. So that's one area of creativity. But then he also has the creative outlet of doing, his acting.
Yeah.
So and also throwing killer raves, I hear, on the cruise. So that also takes a lot of effort. So anyway, it's pretty creative, man.
yeah.
He married actor Susan May Pratt, and they had two lovely children, Lila and Calum. He brought his kids with him to STLV, brought them out on stage when he was doing a panel. Do you guys... Oh, Kelvin, were you there that year?
I don't think so. I was at STLV in 2019.
Okay, yeah, I think that was the one.
Was there?
Because he was
Wow.
in his wheelchair, but he was still talking with his voice. And he had, his cute son came out on the stage. He was just adorable. Yeah. And what I loved about that is that he shared so much of him in his personal life with us.
Yeah.
Like, who brings their kids? Max Grudenchik always brings his kids, So I just love it when actors do that. All right. Some non-Trek acting credits. He worked on Leap Years with Michelle Hurd. I thought that was pretty interesting. I remember Leap Years. Not too much. It was a long time ago. Any others?
I'm just looking down this list that we got here. I think I recognize one show from all of these.
Which
Was
one?
it Jericho?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was like, I know Jericho. I've heard of that one.
Yeah, so these were recurring acting roles, not just one or two. He's done lots of one-offs, but these were recurring. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny right now. I'm like, this is not Trek at all, but I'm doing a Grey's Anatomy binge rewatch of all 19, 20 seasons. It's a long haul, but he does a guest spot on there. Wilson Cruz does a guest spot. Robert Picardo. There are so many, but it was really funny because Justin would sort of decompress with the non-Trek stuff on the cruise. And the day that it was announced that Kenneth passed away, we watched an episode and it was the one with him in it.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
And I was like, this is spooky.
Yeah.
But it's a very touching episode. He plays a newlywed whose wife gets injured on their honeymoon and gets infected with the flesh-eating disease, and how he fights for her and stands by her side and everything. And I was like, oh, of course he does.
Yeah.
Of course, it's the perfect husband. So.
Yeah, and he had a recurring role on Ghost Whisperer, which I remember watching. I wasn't a big fan of that show. I've heard of the Astronaut Wives Club, but I never watched it.
No.
Yeah. But he did have appeared in some movies. 2003, The Recruit. Do you guys know that movie?
No.
Yeah.
No.
2004, Miracle. That's a sports one. I'm sure I've seen it, but don't ask me any questions about it. 2017, Bloody Honey. And in 2019, he was in the Captain Marvel movie where he was father of Carol Danvers in some flashback scenes.
Now, I remember that one well.
Okay, good. All right. So his Star Trek roles. Mark, you want to start us off?
Sure. So he originally played Cole. Let's see here. And he played Cole's son, kol-sha, and Tanavik,
Okay.
son of Vok and Laurel. So he played 3 different Klingons there.
Yeah. So kol-sha is the father, and then Kol is the son of kol-sha. Yeah.
So Kenneth was not afraid to go into full prosthetics, is what we're saying.
Yes.
No.
He was up for a challenge, which I love, because we heard from Mary about how all-encompassing those Klingon prosthetics are, and how like your sweat just gets sealed in and you can hear it slooshing around. And I'm thinking, what a day in the office. What a day. So for him to do it consistently for characters, yeah, that was my hat is off to him, because not everyone can do that.
It may sound really shallow of me to say, but I'm always amazed when I see prosthetic actors in real life, and I see how attractive they are.
Yeah.
I always feel it's such a shame that they're hidden behind all of this latex and rubber. So I remember the first time I saw Mitchell in kind of actor mode or out of it, I thought, he's really hot.
Yeah.
And then but he makes such a good Klingon. You can tell that's where the relationship with he and Murray, they just bonded over the species of being modern Klingons on Discovery.
Yeah, when they first came to STLV, and it was before season 1, and they were discussing how they had the Klingon coach, to learn the language, and that they were always like over at each other's houses practicing and going over scenes and like making sure, well, I'm saying it this way, are you saying it this way? Just amazing attention to detail for what they were doing. And I think that's where they just built that really strong bond that continued.
I know somebody else probably wanted to grab this one, but I got to say that Aurelio was my favorite that he did.
Yeah.
I loved him as that. I mean, he had a lot more recurring roles as the Klingon characters, and we saw him in more of that. But when he was Aurelio, I mean, that character really stuck with you, and it would have been great to have him back because it was just such a memorable character. And he was like one of those anti-heroes, you know what I mean? Like he was kind of on the bad side, but you were rooting for him and you liked him. And so I appreciate it. He gave the character heart. And what a cool contraption they built for him. Great job.
Yeah. Yeah, that was so cool that they brought him back, because the kol-sha and Tanavik, those were seasons 1 and season 2, which I just rewatched in preparation for season 5, and seeing those characters and how different they were, just again, he really was a great actor. Oh, yes.
You're right, Amy. They were also different. I think Tanavik is my favorite. I like the almost the fantasy, and the tying it into Pike's fate storyline. He's now obviously everybody is obsessed with what's going to happen with Captain Pike, but having Ken wired to that in some way now, it's pretty special.
It allows his memory to really live on, because every time we talk about the Pike storyline, we will think of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like kol-sha. I really liked him going up against Laurel, and he just was so devious in there. I liked it. Yeah. Well, he was mentioned in season 4 because we have a ship now, USS Mitchell, in recognition of him.
Oh, beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Ken also did some voice work, which I had no idea, which this is really cool. So he was on Lower Decks, and he played Veritas. The
Veritas is the name of the episode.
Oh, okay. Well, okay. So he played in Lower Decks in the episode Veritas, where he played the twerk captain. Twerk? It looks like twerk. Is he twerking?
That's exactly. Yes, it's like twerk. Yeah.
He's the twerking captain.
Yeah.
He also played Black Ops Operative #2 and a Romulan guard. Wow, I didn't realize. So he has had quite a few Trek credits.
Yes.
That's awesome.
There's something about doing voiceovers and any sort of animated roles that for me, I'm always one of those people who goes, I know that voice. And then you look it up and you find out who it is, and it's just, oh my gosh, I can't believe that's them. And that was very much me. It was like, I know that voice from somewhere. And so you look and you're like, oh, I love that he's just popping in. And I mean, let's be honest, they're not exactly memorable roles. I mean, Black Ops Officer 2.
Well, it depends which one. Was he the one with the Andorian with the banner across his face and the really ripped body? That was quite memorable.
That was him. Yeah. All right. Well, because Kenneth Mitchell played Cole, and that was his big role, his first role, he started this Cole collective. It was pretty darn amazing. And so within that, he had these raves that were on the Star Trek cruise. And these raves, you guys, being raised in Utah, like very sheltered. I had never been to a rave before. And the themes that he had for each rave was so amazing. The first one was in 2020 when it was all about connection. And this was the first rave we did. And it was so cool. Like the thumping of the music, which I normally don't like. But when he was like DJing, he was telling us how to experience, like connect with the music, listen to the beat, feel the motion. Like I had never known how to experience a rave, and he taught me how to do that. And I was in this safe space of my Trek family. That was the best highlight rave I've ever been to. Do you guys remember that first rave, Kristin?
I wasn't on that. I wasn't on that one. That was during 2020, and travel was a bit tough, internationally speaking.
Yeah.
So.
I wasn't at that one either. I did 2 and 3. Ironic that connection was actually quite difficult in 2020 if you're coming from abroad. There was no real moving into America. But Amy, I love that you've never been to a rave before this. I'm from Manchester, and it's got a very vibrant nightlife scene and some of the most famous nightclubs in the UK, and even in the 90s, the Hacienda nightclub was like internationally famous. So I've been to a fair few raves over the years, maybe not too many these days. But yeah, I love that you've totted across from Utah, and here you are moshing around with a glow stick.
So then the one that we did get to go on, 2023, that theme was all about life. There he was definitely in his wheelchair. He was using the voice to the mechanical voice.
It's 22, wasn't it? It was when it was the first year on Mariner, because Mexico was 23. That wasn't, just trying to get my
Was
dates
it
right.
22? Did we not have a rave in 23?
No, no, we didn't.
No, we didn't.
Oh, okay. Then yes. Thank you for correcting me on that. Yeah, 22. And that beautiful theme of life and how he wrote this poem about life and trees and planting, and that's where he wanted to end up. That's when he did the, help me out.
Yeah,
Take
it
away.
was almost like roots of a tree,
Yes.
or the nervous system, or some connect. It was that concept of connect, and it was in the music, it was in the lyrics, it was in the narrative, but it was just so special to see. I mean, obviously on the cruise at any conventions, you see all of the actors come out and attend panels and do things, but this, pretty much every member of the talent that was on the ship attended this rave, and they all came out, they were all dancing. You've got Bob Picardo there, who's about 100 years old, dancing me off. I was sitting down because I was tired. He was up there. Denise Crosby, as you would expect, giving it loads.
Non-stop.
And it was just the moment that would stay with me forever. And the fact that it's very difficult to explain, I guess, if you weren't there, but the bookending almost of the rave by having the one this year on the same vessel, on Mariner of the Seas, the exact same ship, in the exact same room, we were all stood with Ken, but without Ken being there. But Mary kept saying, he is here, he's here. It's right, he was. It was very beautiful. And as someone who's I'm not very in touch with my emotions, or I'm usually quite, almost Vulcan. It just really touched me. It touched me in 2022 and in 2024. And I just feel very honored and privileged to have been there.
Kristin, you were there for the 2022 and the 2024?
I wasn't. So I missed the 2022.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Again, though, travel was it was really hard between because I think Canada's travel regulations were really tough still soon after lockdown. So the one that we did 23 and 24. So the only rave I actually did on the cruise was this last one, the one on the night of his passing. So, but that doesn't take away, for me anyway, from the fact that it was still super emotional, super impactful, an amazing experience, and what a tribute. And I really have to give credit to the crew and the staff on the ship that they pulled this together so quickly, because again, you can't predict this stuff, you can't put this into the itinerary. But they did not. They jumped right into getting it all put together, and I really appreciate that they were able to do that with the sudden shock of everything. And there were a lot of people who knew him personally who were doing this through their grief. So it wasn't that they were just putting stuff together as part of their job. This was something that they were now doing for a friend. And it was, so working through that is not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, it kind of transcended entertainment. It wasn't there to entertain the people who were paying to be on the cruise. It was that, collected grief and doing something positive. And just the fact that Mary could stand there and deliver the touching words that she was saying about Ken while she was going through it, I love her for it.
And the scream, letting Stovall know that a warrior would be entering its gates.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. I know.
Kelvin, do you want to talk about our personal visit, or is it too personal?
Well, I don't think it is something I want to share. So if you're happy to share, Amy, then let's do it. So on the 2022 cruise, we, as you do, you get speaking to other people, other passengers, and we got pally with a girl who was one of Ken's caregivers. I won't say her name just in case she doesn't want to be mentioned. And she came to us on one of the nights saying, I've been talking to Ken about being introduced to you guys and hanging out with you on the ship and at the evenings, and he wants to meet you. And he said, can the group of you guys come up to his cabin and see him? Now, in 2022, he was in the wheelchair. He was speaking assisted through the computer. And, things were pretty difficult for him, but he wanted to experience everything that the cruise had to offer, and he wanted to meet fans. So we were invited up to his room, and it actually took a lot of convincing for me to go, because to me, it felt a little bit like sad fishing, almost like I was intruding on a very personal situation, and it probably uncovered maybe some unconscious bias I had about being uncomfortable around the disabled. I don't know. I've had a lot of time to think about this, but I really didn't want to go. I didn't feel comfortable. And it wasn't until she said, no, it's not, do you want to come and meet Ken as like a one-on-one free photograph session? Ken has asked, can he meet my friends? Because I talk about you guys all week. And that kind of switched it. So it was myself and you, Amy. It was Christos. It was Ria Papagiorgio, my partner James, and Aaron. And that was it, wasn't it?
Ian.
And Ian, yeah. God, it sounds like we mobbed him. But we just went out, and we were there for maybe 5-10 minutes.
No, we were there for a half hour.
Were we really? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, we all introduced ourselves, and he made some jokes, and it was lovely. It was lovely. How did you feel about it, kind of beforehand, during, and now, Amy? What's your take on it? Did you feel comfortable going there?
Oh, I was very uncomfortable. Well, we all know how uncomfortable I am around any talent. So it just was the same thing. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, we all were, I think, very uncomfortable. And then just, again, sort of like, well, how do you have a discussion when you have to wait for his response? Just sort of that. I've never spoken to someone who has to give their response through a computer. So you're right. There was some bias, and it's like, oh my gosh, I need to snap out of this. Mm-hmm. And I remember, like, I gave him a hug in his bed, because he asked for it. I was like, oh yes, I will come and hug you. And, so it was just so wonderful. And yeah, what I remember is his killer sense of humor. Here he is, and he's cracking jokes. Come on. Like, yeah, it very special, very dear to my heart. And I'm glad that we had that opportunity. Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much a money can't buy memory type thing that just made, and there was something about being on exactly the same ship as well, being on Mariner of the Seas. It's pretty potluck which cruise ship you get. They all look the same and they feel the same, but just knowing you were there on that ship in that same room, it struck a chord.
Yeah. Well, let's just quickly go through what is ALS. This was the disease he was diagnosed in August of 2018. It was announced publicly in February of 2020. The first person, obviously outside of his family, that he told was Mary Chifo. And then she helped him reveal the news to the rest of the cast. So even then, their friendship was just super strong. So ALS amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease.
Speaking of otherwise known, so ALS, that's not a term we use in the UK. We would say motor neurone disease. And Stephen Hawking is obviously the person who is very famous from our country who had the same condition. But I remember research, I was Googling, you do when you get bored, don't you? I was Googling why do Americans say ALS and we say motor neurone disease. And apparently ALS is a specific form of motor neurone disease, but Americans have kind of adopted it as the kind of the catch-all term. And the same is kind of true of motor neurone disease. There's slightly different varieties as well, but we just say that as the catch-all. So I had a little bit of an education on some of these terms because I was curious as why have I never heard of anyone having ALS in the UK? Why is it a Ken thing? Why is it an American thing? And it turns out, there you go, he's got something in common with Stephen Hawking's.
Yeah.
It's similar to when people say, oh, they've got dementia, right? So dementia is sort of the umbrella term, and then there are different types of dementia that fall under it. So this is the same situation, and under that would be like muscular dystrophy as well, is sort of under that same umbrella, where it's just your body loses the ability to have that connection between your brain telling your body what to do and your muscles what to do, and you just stop being able to function. I worked in the hospice in our town for a while, and I would do meal assists where I would help people with muscular dystrophy get out, go do stuff, and of course doing like meals. And you develop a sense of appreciation when you see people and you're close with somebody and you're helping them do something that you maybe take for granted that you do every day. And I will never forget a gentleman. He actually, when I read about Ken, it reminded me of this gentleman. He must have been about late 40s, early 50s, just a physical specimen. Like, he was a good looking guy. And I walked into his room, and he was in the chair, fully braced up because his body couldn't hold itself up anymore. And I was there to help him eat. And he was so, like, you could just see how embarrassed he was. And, talking about being comfortable around people with these different disabilities and these different challenges that are unique, and how it really helps you to become comfortable in silence. And that so much of our communication between us as humans is body language. And when they can't respond, or it takes them a long time to respond, just not allowing your body to show that you're uncomfortable in the situation, and just being okay with the situation not being okay is really what I learned. So now that I work with every day with people with disabilities, that's something that I have to practice consistently. Is it takes them a long time to get their words, a long time for their physical body to be able to say the words. And it's just, you just let them do what they need to do, and realizing that that's their normal. It may not be our normal, but it's their everyday experience. And the gentleman did eventually pass away. And, the experience of death for somebody with this type of a diagnosis is something that, until you're in those shoes, you don't understand that it is not as scary as it would be for somebody who's not in that situation. Sorry, I'm rambling.
Not at all. Not at all.
Yeah. Mark, do you have any experience or association with ALS in your life, or is this still, out there beyond your inner circles?
No, I really haven't. Aside from Ken, seeing him at STLV, he's like the only person that I've been in the orbit of that had ALS. And I did see him even, his advanced stages of it at STLV, still being active and putting himself out there. And I made it a point to go over and like wave and say hello to him while I was at STLV, but I kind of felt weird about doing an autograph or a photo with him, because I think, Kelvin, you were kind of a little bit weird about it as well. It's like I felt I didn't want to essentially, like, I don't know, like take advantage of him, I guess, because he's like, you know what I mean? Like I wanted him to know that I appreciated him being there, and I wanted to say hello, and I wanted to wave and whatever. But I didn't want to necessarily like go and get an autograph or something, because I'm like, oh, this guy, he's going to be gone soon or something like that. I just felt really a weird conflict in my head about it. And I said, it'd be better just to like recognize him, to say hello, make him know we appreciated him being there, but then, let him have his space with the other fans. And that's sort of where I sat with it again, because I haven't, came in contact with a lot of people with ALS. So I didn't really know how to act myself, but I did want him to know that we were all happy he was there. So that was important to me.
Nice.
Did anybody remember the ice bucket challenge?
Yes.
For ALS? I mean,
yes.
It's been, close to 10 years ago. And it was, we did it. Justin and I dumped buckets of ice water on each other and filmed it. And I'm not sure what it did, but apparently that it did raise quite a bit of money towards research, and really significant strides are being done towards finding a cure. And they say that, there's clinical trials up here in Canada that are using AI to help, at least right now, delay the onset of symptoms. But it's great to see that, and discussions about it and talking about our the impacts of this disease will help to continue to keep it at the forefront of medical research. So it's important to not let these conversations fall by the wayside, but instead making sure that we're constantly talking about it.
I was going to say, I thought we should do another ice bucket challenge that I think raised a lot of money, and also you did get to see a lot of hot shirtless men throwing water on themselves for like a whole summer, and I was living for it. So let's bring that back. Good cause, shirtless men, water. What could go wrong?
Everyone's a winner.
Red ice bucket, like everyone wears something Star Trek related, and then dumps water.
No, wear less. It's Ryza. We're on Ryza.
On Ryza, the Ryza ice bucket challenge.
There you go.
Yeah, I do remember that challenge. And it originally was, if you did the ice bucket, then, you were supposed to donate money to, so that was, but then people were like, just dumping. But I think even that, getting the discussion out there and the awareness also is important too. There are some charities that we would like to bring your attention to in case you are feeling the need to donate. Now, there was a Kenneth Mitchell GoFundMe. There still is. I went there. It's still active. You can donate, and the money goes directly to his family. It's GoFundMe. And the goal was to have $100,000. Well, as of April 10th, when I did my research, there were 547 donations, which raised $114,745, which, yes, all goes to pay for those stupid medical bills, because U.S. is stupid with medical bills. I was doing some research, and it was like they estimated if one gets ALS, it's a $2 million medical bill ticket item. It's just that expensive over the life.
I hope he held on to his Canadian citizenship then.
Right?
Because then it's all free.
Yeah.
The idea of going bankrupt when you get sick is not a concept that Kelvin and I would really understand.
Well, it's interesting you say that. And I know a lot of people talk about the NHS in this country as this miraculous kind of free service for all. Obviously, we pay national insurance that goes towards it. But there was a celebrity who is a breakfast TV news host. Her husband very recently passed away. He had long COVID and very serious complications as well. Not completely dissimilar to ALS. And she said, I by most stretches of the imagination, I'm quite wealthy. I've got this job in TV. I'm doing well. And just the amount of money she has to spend in the care, the adapting of the home so he could live at home. She said it is horrendous. And that's what she's doing now to shine a light on carers, especially people who are just family carers, going about their business, still working, but having to deal with all of this when they get home, because it is almost like the unsung heroes in these cases.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
That's okay. So that's different than in Canada. We have grants for home adaptations. We have tax benefits for those who are staying at home to care. We have home and community care nurses who go around and support people through the day. So, and that's all built in free.
Let's all move to Canada.
That's all moved to Canada.
So one organization that Kenneth Mitchell did support, and that is the ALS Network, alsnetwork.org. And they did a wonderful tribute in their February 25th article of this year. He, was working with their foundation. They have a very wonderful video and just a wonderful write-up for him. Did any of you guys get to read that or watch the video that wanted to comment?
I read a little bit of the website, but I didn't press play on the video because I was in the gym.
Yeah. So other organizations target ALS Association, Les Turner ALS Foundation, and the ALS Hope Foundation. Now, listeners, all of these links I included in the show notes. So if you just want to scroll and click there, that will take you to the organization if you choose to donate. All right, let's get our final thoughts. Kristin, let's start with you.
Honestly, the first thing I thought about when he passed away was I thought about his family. Again, as somebody who has worked at hospice, worked with seniors, worked with those whose life expectancy is not a full lifespan. I know that when people get to that age, that stage in their progression, death is not scary for them anymore. And it is hardest on the living. It's always hardest on those that are left behind. And really, I thought about his wife. He was so young and had so much left. And I thought about my husband, and he's 9 years younger than Kenneth. And to think that I could only have 9 years left with Justin. And I just, at the rave, I remember that thought hit me. And I went up into the stands and I just started crying. I mean, it was also the pirate night. So I had quite a few beverages of adult nature. And so I was already emotional. And then the music and the dancing and the everything. And then that thought just flooded in my brain. And I just started crying uncontrollably. So I really, I think about his wife and her continuing life with the kids and trying to honor him and trying to go on without her partner. And my heart broke for her. So I hope that they're all doing well. I hope that they take solace in the fact that he is at peace. But it's such an unfortunate situation, and he was taken way far, far too young.
Mark?
Why did we lose Ken and we still have Trump? I don't know. It's always really good people that get taken too soon, and the people, that we wish wouldn't be here anymore stick around. I don't know. It makes no sense. Ken was such a sweet soul, gave so much of himself to his family and his friends, pretty much everybody he was authentic with, and his talent. as we were saying at the very start, like his just passion for the arts and being creative and bringing that level of creativity to every aspect of his life throughout even his journey with ALS. It's like he kept continuing to be creative and to look for ways to shine a spotlight on these different passions of his. It was just incredible and very inspiring. It's like, we all have problems. We all have things in our lives that, are a pain in the butt. And it's about what we do in those moments and how we transform those moments. And I think that is the lasting message of Ken is like, okay, even against, all odds, you can still be productive. You can still bring goodness to the world.
Yes.
Agreed. I think about exactly, he shared so much of his life with us through the conventions and the crews, and his attitude and what he was supporting, and his love of his family was very evident. He definitely lived life and is someone that I will remember for a very long time. I recently heard a quote that there are two deaths in this world, one where your body dies, and the second death is when people stop talking about you. And so I am very glad that we have this opportunity to talk about Kenneth, because by doing so, he is alive in our lives.
Absolutely.
Kelvin, your final thoughts?
Talking about this subject and talking about Ken as part of our Kobayashi Maru series isn't as being flippant. You talk about a no-win scenario of a terminal illness, but a couple of days ago, Wilson Cruz and Sonequa Martin Green were on The View with Whoopi Goldberg, and they were talking about the end of Discovery. And Whoopi said, "You do know this, it will never be over. You're always those characters, and this franchise is so massive, and you will go on forever." And I thought, well, so is Ken. He is these four characters, and the man behind the characters is just as much beloved by the Star Trek community, people who've met him at conventions, or just inspired by the story. So we talk about Kirk cheating the Kobayashi Maru by reprogramming the computer. Ken has beaten the Kobayashi Maru because of the impact he's made, whether it's financial to the charities, whether it's the awareness, whether it's the effect he's had on us, the personal effects he's had on me being more comfortable around disability. It's far-reaching, and what a very, very special man, and we're special to have met him.
Agreed. Very well said. What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out, hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG, hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Treksperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev, a Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio. Kelvin, what are we going to be talking about next week?
Right. Well, we are going behind the scenes of Discovery next week, and we are continuing our Architects series, and we're going to look at the many different producers and showrunners of Star Trek Discovery through the different seasons. So there's going to be quite a lot of gossip, quite a lot of opinion, and I'm really looking forward to chatting about it.
Why were you looking at me when you said opinion?
I was looking at you when I said gossip.
Girl.
We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, or on our Discord server to continue our discussion there. You can reach us at All Good Pod on X and Bluesky. Please follow the network on X, Bluesky, and Instagram at BQN Podcast. We've also partnered with our friends at the Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching their master feed. Links can be found in the show notes. So, Kristin, where can people find you when you aren't worrying about medical bills up in Canada?
With the carefree life we have up here. No, joking. I'm not really on social media a lot, but I have a presence. I am on Instagram. I forgot what it was called there for a sec. At K Stratz. Stratz. And I'm on Facebook, just Kristin Strachlat, and of course on the BQN network. I'm also on Reddit, which is random, but it's I'm /Garrick's fan club. So that's actually a really fun place to talk about Trek is Reddit. So if anyone's ever looking for it, there are so many subreddits and people are a lot of fun to talk to. And Kelvin, where can people find your fabulous self online?
Well, I am also in the BQN Collective Facebook group. I'm also on the Discord server in the various chats there, or you can come to me directly at Kelvin's Timeline on Twitter or Instagram. And Mark, where can people find you when you're not presenting Captain Pike with time crystals?
Oh. When I'm not doing that, you can find me on Facebook, on the Facebook group, BQN Collective. You can find me on the Discord thingy. I do that too. I am Instagram, MW207, Bluesky, same handle. And listeners, if you want a little reprieve from Trek, I have another show on the network called Cinema Z, and it is just like Trexperts Quiz, but without any of the quizzes or the Star Trek. But it's like the same show. So you guys like Trexperts, you'll like Cinema Z. Davey Willett is also an associate producer, along with Miss Amy Nelson over at that pod. So please check us out. Sometimes they're on there as well with us. We think you're really going to love it. And Amy, where can people find you when you are not getting invited to meet cool celebrities, which seems to happen to you regularly? I don't know.
Oh, well, if you're counting yourself, Kelvin, and Kristin as celebrities, then yes, I do get invited a lot. Well, you can find me here on the network where I'm co-hosting Union Federation. Yes, that's right. We are back. We're covering new Trek. I am on Facebook BQN Collective, but my new favorite place is our Discord server. It is so much fun. Please find us there. I'm loving what's going on.
If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you too can become a patron of the network on Patreon. For just $1 a month, you can join our Let's Fly reaction show, script readings, and enjoy special Patreon-only shows of It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details, and you watch those messages.
If becoming a patron isn't your thing, you can still support the show by sharing our posts on social media, talking about it with your friends, or hitting the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leaving us a star rating and written review. That helps others to find the show.
At this time, we would like to thank our associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Jenediah Seastrum. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and our very own Mark White for our artwork each and every week.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us.
As we search out.
All good things.
Wow.
Take us to church.
Oh no, I've got my
No.
straights over there too. They're on the boat as well.
I
Just
didn't
not
see
as
any
fun.
pictures of them either.
There's like one or two.
I'm going through the photos. I was like, I don't see any straight people. It's like, where's Waldo on that cruise?
Exactly.
They're the ones not wearing colors. Like,
Yes.
oh, drab. There it is.
The long
they go
board
to bed
shorts.
early.
The socks with sandals.
Ew.
Oh.
Nobody
Hey.
wants to see that.
Nope.
Yes. Let's not shame the straights. Oh my goodness.
I'm married to one. I guess we can't shame.
Yes. All right. Anything else that needs to be said?
Going by fast, unfortunately.
Oh, I know.
Unfortunate.
I know. Yeah. You want to do the next one? Anyone? Does voice work?
Oh, I don't have the script.
Oh, you've been working off the cuff this whole time? Wow.
Me? Yeah. No.
Yeah.
I don't have. Sorry, I'm still new to this. I'm used to just going live and off the cuff. So that's just where.
You're great at it, by the way.
Yeah.
You are.
And that's the beauty of these we can edit. It's wonderful. You
Mhm.
can just take a time out. Is my internet any better?
Not anymore. When you came on, it was really, really good, and then it went to shit again.
Right. Considering I'm not hosting, I think I'm going to transfer to my phone with my.
Okay.
You don't be 1 minute.
Shit.
I'm gonna. We're gonna say yes. That sounds like
Yes.
a freaking idea.
Yeah.
Oh.
Lord.
Are we waiting for him or should we continue?
Yeah. Is this the introduction that you had for ALS?
No,
No.
We're
No.
not there yet.
it's okay. No, I'll do it. Or Mark, do you want to? Because you like
Sure.
lower
I
deck.
did the other one, so
Oh,
I might
okay.
as well.
Okay.
I'm just gonna go run and fill my coffee up. I'll BRB.
Oh, I guess we're taking a break.
Oh no! Keep talking. I'll just because we're not recording, so I'll be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, let's talk about lower decks. You and me, Mark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
With the trivia, you want me to do the trivia?
No, no.
Okay.
Just that he did voice work.
Yeah. You want me to? Yeah.
Yeah.
Continue with that. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
We would say, oh my God, my mind's just gone blank.
Okay, so Kristin, you are going to ask Kelvin, where can people find him?
Oh,
Kristin, say, as we search out.